Thanks so much. Hello, everybody, and glad to be here. So yesterday I was part of a large corporation, and today I'm a startup. So this is a new experience for me, but I'm happy to be here to share all that I know about smart cities. So as Lynn mentioned, I've been working in this space for quite some time, and I have been really fortunate to have the exposure of over 20 years to large, complex infrastructure projects. And so what I'm going to share with you today is why are smart cities so important? Why is it important for all of us to understand that technology plays a huge role in the future of our economy and our prosperity and our health and our welfare. So if you look at some of the trends that you can see, and you're seeing it in Toronto with all the tower cranes, our cities are getting more dense. We're getting taller condo buildings, we're having more people living in a smaller footprint, and by 2050 you can see that there'll be 70% of the world's population will live in cities. So our cities, as they were designed 20 and 30 years ago, didn't expect that high concentration and density of people. And so it puts a lot of strain on infrastructure such as water, mobility, so moving people around, the roads, actual hospital services, and so on. And if you look at some other trends here, you'll see that there's a big demographic change. So we're all going to live longer. So I guess that's a great thing. What that gives rise to, though, also is the need for a lot of data. And data seems to be one of the key themes that people are planning for. And if they aren't planning for, then they should be, because that is going to be a turning point for how smart we can be with delivering services to cities and to all the people that live in them. So I'm not sure how many people even have heard of the term zettabytes. How many people know the term zettabytes? Not very many. Any guess as to how many zeros in a zettabyte? No? 21. 21. So the need for data storage and data planning is also very critical in order for us to get these services delivered to us as we have our population increase and move towards denser cities. So to build a smart city, you need to build it on the foundation of electrification, automation, and digitalization. And I'm going to get into that in the next slides. So I wanted to ask if anyone could guess where this city is. Any guesses from the audience? Pretty nice city, some water, towers. Any guesses? Don't be shy, come on. It's not that hard. Okay, you're giving up, I think. There's nobody that's brave. Shanghai, that's a very good guess. Very good guess. Anyone else? Dubai, very good guess. Very good guesses. This city is actually a simulation. And I thought it was appropriate because we're here at the BIM conference. It's a simulation based on data that was provided from the city of Vietnam, or sorry, from a city in Vietnam, and it is actually an existing marshland. And the reason that I wanted to bring this forward is because information and inputs from the city gave rise to what the possibility for the future use could be. And based on all their desires, this city was developed as a simulation and a digital twin. And I think that it's very powerful because the topics that were incorporated into the city of the future there include all of the access ways to the mainland. You see there are the bridges that are over the water, and also the integration of water right into the cityscape. So it actually improves the environment. It makes people feel like they're on the water. And the three tall towers are a job center, so it's to attract Class A employers. And to bring people into a space that they could live and work and play. And if you see the round, there is also a zone, you can see the circular dome, that's a sports arena as well. So the idea is to take all of the data, take the needs and the wants of the cities and then incorporate those into a simulation that people can see and understand. And that's how you can start to build a smart city. And a smart city is truly intended to provide better services to the people who live in the city, and also from the city administration perspective, and also to help keep the environment clean and healthy for people to live in the city and not have to drive away at the end of the day. So that's the future, and here is the present. So if anyone wants to see a live example, living proof of one of the most sustainable buildings and smartest buildings in the world, you can journey over to London, UK, where the Siemens crystal has been built. So it was built from scratch about 5 years ago. And the concept there was to show people that we don't have to wait for 10 years and 15 years to build a city of the future. So this building was modeled in BIM and 3D modeling, and was done through the use of digital twin. You can tell by the shape of all the glass and the angles that it is a very unique structure, but also the reason for all of those shapes and angles is to optimize natural daylight. So the opportunity to make one of the most sustainable buildings in the world was through the use of solar panels, and then the use of the glass, and to harvest as much natural light as possible. And there's also automated room control for cooling purposes, where there's automated shading. So the shading is there so that if there's too much sunlight and then the temperatures of the building or the rooms go up, then automatically the shades will go down to keep the room cooler. And you can, of course, override them. But that's an example of a smart building where actually a lot of building controls are integrated. So why is digitalization and why are smart cities so important? Well, they're important because smart people want to live in smart cities. Employers want to attract smart people and retain them, but also there's a business benefit for automating and increasing the digitalization in cities. And just for example, in the case of Toronto, so I've been involved with the Toronto Board of Trade and Smarter Cities Working Group, and we had commissioned a study to quantify what the benefits of going with a smarter city approach would be. And you can see here that without doing anything different, then the city would face an additional $607 million in 2017 and a further $380 million in 2018. And I think these are very large numbers, as you can see, but also if you move towards smart cities, you can increase the level of service, and you can also increase jobs as well. So you can increase jobs, you can increase the level of service. You've got an aging workforce, and they're not allowed to increase and keep hiring and hiring. No employer is these days. So without automation and digitalization, it'll be really tough for the cities to deliver services that people expect. And I'll just share with you, what do people expect? So this is an idea of what users and people living in cities want to have access to all through their iPhone. So, I mean, 15 years ago and 20 years ago, no one had visibility on city services. No one had visibility in terms of where the traffic congestion is. And now, as you can see on the right-hand side, people want to know how the buildings are being controlled, how they're performing against CO2 and greenhouse gas savings. Also how they can keep their homes safe, and are their kids safe when they're in their homes and no one else is there. So you can see from the right-hand side the list of some of the requirements. This is actually a list that came from a development in Colorado, and it is it's based on a new development trying to attract people to move into this new development, and this was based on inputs from user groups. So in order to deliver all of these information sets and to give people apps and real-time meaningful information, you need to have infrastructure. You need to have a digital infrastructure that's going to support the movement of data and the sharing of data in real time, and the accurate real-time trends. And so what was designed here was a community fiber network to share information across the many assets in the community, and then to give people real-time visibility through apps. So the topic that we see now is that there's more data, so there's new market drivers, there's a lot more sensors that are available because they're much lower in cost. And we also know that as our assets age, they need repairs, and in order to prevent taking our assets out of service or to prevent unexpected downtime, for example, for the elevators or for the moving sidewalks that you just saw, we're adopting the use of sensors and real-time information, fault diagnostics, and closed-loop monitoring so that we can predict when things will go down rather than waiting for them to fail and then having to run back and fix them and have people's services disruptive. So by digitalizing your building, you're actually creating a better user experience. And when you have a better user experience, then people will want to stay, and then you'll have your occupancy rates increased. And that's what developers are really looking for, is they're looking for giving a great comfort and great experience in their building and attracting new employers and retaining key talent. So working in this area, I've experienced many benefits, and I've seen myself that as the infrastructure projects get more complex, without digital tools and without digitalization, it's really hard to deliver your projects on time and have errors caught before they hit the field. And so it makes good business sense when we're designing buildings that we use the power of data as well through various team center and various software platforms so people can share data and engineering information across each team. And so you can see just some of the stats that were provided here by Stanford that as we digitalize, we actually see that our operating costs can be lowered by 9% because there's more coordinated processes, and up to 40% decrease in non-budgeted change orders. Now, I know everybody in the field of construction, I've been building infrastructure for a long time, and I know that the contractors love change orders. And that's why I adopted the use of 3D modeling and digitalization many years ago in mining. So I think it's really important that it's not only a trend that we have to keep on the forefront of our infrastructure building, but it's also a money saver. So to build a smart city, it's a very complex task, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you can build a smart city and the city of the future on the three fundamental pillars. As I mentioned, data is the first one, so accurate data and easily accessible data that is of high quality and has key performance indicators, so not just masses of data, but actually key performance indicators that can give you some trending and some information for you to have metrics for and measure your performance and effectiveness in. The second foundational element is people. And I think that this is a big challenge that we've seen over the years, that everybody expects everyone to just know all of this new technology and understand its impact. But we have an aging workforce, we have a new workforce, and we have a middle workforce. And it's very, very important to build a skills development program so that you can have the highest productivity from your teams, and you don't have to rely on bringing outside consultants in. So investing in the people and keeping their skills up is a really key aspect of digitalizing and creating a smart city. And then the third fundamental element is technologies. And technologies are coming fast and furious. They're evolving at a pace that no one has ever anticipated in the past. And so there's so many solutions now that there weren't even 1 and 2 years ago. So it's really important that the people are smart and they have the right data with KPI indicators, and then they can apply which technologies will transform their operation or their city services into the most efficient. And we're seeing that not only do cities want smart services, but they also want to be resilient, because we've had so many challenges with unexpected weather. And you can see all these hurricanes and storms are really causing a lot of stress on people and creating fatalities. And so these days, it's not a matter of if we'll have a weather event, it's a matter of when the weather event will occur, and then how quick can we recover. And with proper planning, you can actually make your city very resilient, and you can have localized centers that are actually islanded and have energy storage just in case the power grid goes down. And the last fundamental on the how to build the city of the future is around sustainability. So we know that there's a trend around decarbonization, and that trend will continue, but it is really also about people's lives and human health and the health of our kids and our parents and grandparents. And if we don't electrify, then we're going to have a huge impact in terms of air quality. So these are the fundamental pillars, but I wanted to just share why is it a challenge sometimes to build some of these smart infrastructure projects. And if you can see here, there's just so many diverse roles and so many different requirements that have to be met, and a lot of community consultation and consultation with builders and financiers and city planners and so on. So it really makes it very difficult to fast track intelligent infrastructure. But if you actually take into consideration all these requirements and have a proper planning process, then you can actually create a very open and secure ecosystem. And what I'm showing here is that we've taken all the needs of the diverse stakeholders on the left-hand side, and we've integrated their needs into a digital architecture that includes aligning and collecting data from the different asset streams in the city. So for example, the buildings and the transit systems and the water, wastewater plants that in the past used to be siloed, and the data was held very close to the operation. Now with the introduction of a cloud platform, that data can be shared into the cloud, and then analytics and preventive maintenance can be applied. So then you don't have to suffer through an elevator that's not working, or the water plant not pumping water, or that the grid is not available for your to keep the power and the heat and the lights on. So through a cloud and a cloud platform, we call that a data lake. Then we apply applications, and applications are available either customized at the local level, at the city level, or they're available through global sites such as the App Store. So there's actually a global app store for cities, and cities can download those apps and then customize them. And then so an application to move the garbage trucks faster in New Zealand could be applied here in Toronto, and so forth. And so I think this is going to be the trend. This is the future, which includes making data available and creating apps. And digital twin, the concept of the digital twin is also very important, because cities don't have money to make mistakes. So through digital twin applications, you can actually walk through all of the projected construction, and you can give the 3D visuals so that people can actually see and approve and shorten the project cycle. And I've seen that myself, that it has helped quite a bit. Another key area I wanted to talk about was the fact that buildings are becoming smarter because we're putting more sensors in them, and then the grid is becoming smarter because we're also adding sensors into the power grid. And a new trend that we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, because of the weather events, is that buildings are being equipped now with microgrids. And so microgrids are intended to harness some renewable power from, say, for example, solar or from geothermal. And they're meant to also have battery storage, so that if the power goes down, the building itself can be protected and operate in island mode, which we call it island mode. This is a really key evolving trend. It is a bit expensive, but on the other hand, in terms of outfitting a building to protect human lives, there's the payback has been demonstrated elsewhere. And in fact, in one of the superstorms in the U.S. in the Texas area, there was a small neighborhood that actually put in their own microgrid, and through the last hurricane, they were one of the only locations that you could get water, gas, food, because they invested in the microgrid, and that was a real key turning point for that area to become, rapidly recovered. So just moving on into the microgrid and the whole concept of buildings. Buildings are becoming smarter, and we're able to understand more things about them. So for example, in the Vancouver Convention Center, there's 19,000 sensors that are in the convention center there. And what that does, it allows the operation of the building to be optimized when people are in it. But when people are not in the building, then the lights go down, the HVAC ramps down, and the heating and cooling systems are not operational. But when someone comes in, there's all motion detectors, and then automatically the systems ramp up. So these are some of the automated opportunities for us. And then when you layer on the fault detection and diagnostics, we can actually predict when an HVAC system would go down. We can prevent the interruption of the elevators because we know the sensors will actually pick up noise or vibration, and then we can do the maintenance before the service fails. And so that's a really key benefit as well. So some of the experience that I've had, as Lynn mentioned, I've been involved with the Toronto Pan Am Games. I was a program director for this new infrastructure. This was a really difficult project to do because of the fact that there were so many stakeholders, as I showed you earlier, and there were a lot of concepts, but people had really limited budgets, but they really wanted to make a big impact. And so some of the areas that we worked in to bring smart infrastructure included the Pan Am Village, also the Hamilton Soccer Stadium. So I was actually born in Hamilton. I'm very proud to have had an impact on the economy in Hamilton because now they're able to bring NFL games because of the use of the building of the new stadium. And this is a key example of how smart technology can really optimize and reduce the operating costs for the city as well because of all the automation and building management systems that we put in to really maintain the OPEX levels at the lowest level. And then another example is the Milton Velodrome. So this was a brand new facility. It was constructed at the site of a field. I don't know how many people are from Milton. It is one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. I believe it is the fastest growing city, in fact. So there's a lot of opportunity there for the town now to build around this velodrome. And at first, there was a bit of a funny story. The city of Hamilton was going to have the velodrome, and then they couldn't raise enough money. So I know the mayor of Milton called over to the mayor of Hamilton, and he said, just take out those first two letters, and we'll take the velodrome. So rather than Hamilton, it became the Milton Velodrome. It's a true story, actually. So so they took a chance, and they went out on a limb, and they built this very smart, intelligent building. And now this building generates tourism. It's used 350 days a year. It's changed the footprint of the town, and now the town is going to actually be the site of a new Laurier University on 400 acres. So they really like to use this as a footprint going forward and as a lighthouse for how they should construct some of the next build-outs, and including the renewable power and district energy and all these things that we know will also make this very sustainable. And another area that is really key to a city is moving people around. And so we talked about buildings, we talked about the electrical grid, and now we're talking about mobility. And when it comes to mobility, we know that each city, as I mentioned earlier, that mega trend with the higher density of people coming into cities, it means that we have to manage congestion, we have to manage the traffic lights, we have to make it easier for people to walk and cycle and do that safely and go home safely at night. And you've heard a lot of some of the accidents and fatalities with cyclists lately, and there are lots of areas that we can improve by using sensors and technology, and it's a matter of some political will and some budgeting and some planning to actually make it right. So I think you'll see more and more that the trend toward investing in intelligent infrastructure for mobility is going to increase. And we also know that the smart city in the waterfront area, that smart city zone, will also be the home to some smart mobility, some autonomous vehicles. And to move the needle from where we are today to smart and autonomous vehicles takes some time, and it takes testing. So I'm an advocate that you do this in a segregated area, and I think that the waterfront development has it right in terms of doing that in a new zone and the Villiers Island area. So we kind of keep the new vehicles away from pedestrians and try to prove out the routes and so on. This is going to be a key trend. So anybody who's involved with any of the technology around autonomous vehicles will also see a big shift towards electrification of the infrastructure as well. And I think that another area we are really seeing a big commitment to, and as I mentioned earlier, mobility and moving people around is the third area of investment infrastructure that's the highest for cities. And you're seeing now that the RER project with Metrolinx is putting $20 billion into electrifying and expanding the GO Transit network. So these technologies are very important, and the fact that electrification is such a big part of making these successful will take a lot of investment in planning and proper planning. So the electrical infrastructure is a key enabler to creating smart technology and real-time information for apps. A recent project that got off the ground in the city of Calgary. I know in Toronto we're struggling to get our new LRTs, but I can point you over to the city of Calgary that started their process in 2016, and by late 2017 they received their first demonstration car. And then the cars have been delivered during late 2017 and during this year. So they're modernizing their transit, also electrifying, and making their transit system smart so that there's lots of detailed apps and lots of information for riders. And that really improves the quality of life. And it also being electrified reduces the amount of cars on the road. And then when we talk about also moving people, I wanted to bring this example forward because I know that there are a lot of cities that are looking at electrifying their buses and looking at hydrogen as well. And this example here in Sweden is really key because not only did they electrify their buses, they bought bus chargers, but they committed to using green power for charging the batteries. So this is really key because if you use coal or gas-powered power to charge your batteries, then you're just really greenwashing, in my opinion. In this case, this is a really important commitment that the Swedes made, and they're delivering green mobility with green power, and I think that's really key. So I just wanted to conclude and say that with all this data that's going to be available now through digitalizing, there are lots of uses for the data. And I myself used BIM modeling and 3D modeling in a mining project where we had 200 construction workers that came on site, and I was the engineering superintendent for the capital projects. And in order to orient them for this massive plant retrofit that we were working on, we made a digital twin of our building and our process plant, and then we modeled taking out the equipment, the old equipment, and then we showed them through the model and videos how the new equipment would come in. And what that did, and it took us 3 months to do this, and it was a good budget, I can say, and there was a lot of work because we didn't have as-built drawings of the existing plant. But you can't imagine a number of people like the number in this room here today coming forward and thanking me personally because of the fact that they could then plan the job and see the safety hazards before they exist, and then execute this construction project without any fatalities or any harm to equipment or to people. So I'm just so committed to BIM and to digital twinning, and that's why I'm here today, and that's why I wanted to share my story about how you can use digital twin and software and data to really create a better future and really improve the lives of everybody involved in those projects. So happy to share my story. Thank you.